Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm on chapter 2 of Half Upon a Time now, so I hope you enjoyed chapter 1. It was a little bit longer. The second one's going to be a little bit shorter, so maybe we'll have time for a little bit more commentary this time. So I'm going to get reading so you don't even have to delay at all. Let's see. Chapter 2, Half Upon a Time by James somebody. Think she's alright? Jack's grandfather asked, tapping her leg with his foot. Don't kick her, Jack whispered. She's a princess. The old man kicked her again. Doesn't mean she's alright. Just let me handle this, okay? Jack said as he bent over the girl protectively. His grandfather grunted and wandered off in the direction of their cottage, hopefully to get a blanket or something. Meanwhile, the girl hadn't woken up, which wasn't a good sign. The short fall from the fire circle in the sky shouldn't have been enough to knock her out, so it must have been something else. A spell, maybe? Jack frowned. If it was a magical sleep, there was a very specific way to wake up a princess. Jack crinkled his forehead, struggling to remember his lessons from school. She had to be kissed, yeah, but did the kisser have to be a prince? Why were there so many rules to these stupid spells, anyway? This had been the sort of thing he ignored on general principle. How often did someone just trip over a sleeping princess, after all? Jack had been much more interested in learning why bees stung, or what part of the month were-rabbits transformed into humans, rather than how to deal with spoiled royals who couldn't get out of bed. Do you have to be a prince to wake a sleeping princess? Jack whispered to his returning grandfather, who instead of bringing back something useful, had dragged out a chair to sit on. Who knows, the old man said. Smooch her, see what happens. Jack glared at him. I'm not just gonna kiss her. If you don't, I will, the old man said. You think she wants to wake up to this? He pointed to his bearded, wrinkled face. Jack nodded. Good point. He bent over the girl, then paused, suddenly nervous. Whoever this girl was, she was all kinds of cute and about his age. Plus, she was royalty, whereas he was just some idiot covered in cave dirt. Do it already, his grandfather shouted. In my day, she'd be awake and married to you by now. Shh, Jack hissed, his face just inches from the princess's. I don't want to do this wrong. You've never kissed a girl, have you? His grandfather said, then snorted. We really do have to get you out of this village. Jack just growled in response and turned back to the girl. Good luck, princess, he whispered to her, then smushed his mouth against hers. The princess's eyes immediately flew open and she sat up so fast her head smacked right into Jack's. A hollow bonk echoed through the clearing. Bonk? I don't know how to do that hollowly. Ow! The princess yelled, grabbing her head. Ow! Jack shouted, falling backward and holding his forehead as well. His grandfather almost fell backward out of his chair too, though only because he was laughing so hard. Now extremely awake, the princess glared all around, looking confused, scared, and pained all at once. Grandma? She yelled. She started to get to her feet, but quickly fell back down, apparently still woozy from whatever had knocked her out. Grandma! She yelled more urgently, this time then turned to Jack, her eyes wide with fear. Who are you? Where am I? Where's my grandmother? Abruptly, her look went from scared to annoyed. And what made you think that kissing me was okay? Jack turned fiery red. Yeah, sorry about that, he said quietly. The princess grunted, still glaring. Where's the guy in green? She asked, and where's my grandmother? Jack shook his head, a little done with all of her questions. No idea, he said, trying to stay patient. You're the only one who fell out of the sky, okay? The girl looked up at the now empty sky, the sun setting in the distance. Wait, the fire tunnel, she said, almost to herself. And it was after midnight a second ago. Why is it so light here? Where am I? Giant's Hand, princess, Jack's grandfather said, pushing past Jack. A small village in the kingdom of Blunderbush. The old man waited for a sign of recognition, but when he got none, he just shrugged. It's a pretty small kingdom, he admitted. The princess stared at Jack's grandfather for a second, then turned back to Jack, where she seemed to notice something for the first time. Her eyes popped and her mouth dropped open, a small squeak echoing in her throat. The fairy and Jack's hair just stared right back at her. What? Jack said finally, the silence making him a little uncomfortable. The princess pointed at the fairy, still not saying anything, her mouth still wide open. The fairy pointed back with a smile, enjoying the game. It's a fairy, Jack said, his annoyance starting to creep into his voice. What's wrong? There's a little person in your hair, the princess said, her voice cracking. You're asking me what's wrong? Jack reached up and gently picked the fairy out of his hair, then held her out for the princess to get a closer look. See, he said, just a fairy. Just a fairy, the princess said, shoving herself away from the fairy in a panic. That's not right. It can't be real. It's a special effect or something, right? I mean, I can deal with little monsters with axes and blue fire tunnels and everything, but that's not right. The fairy's smile turned into a frown, and she stuck out her tongue at the girl. Jack held his other hand protectively in front of the fairy, shielding her from the princess's outburst. There's no reason to be rude, he said. Rude? The girl said, her voice cracking again. Oh, I get it. I'm asleep. This is all a dream, right? She reached out and pinched Jack. Ow, he said, and pinched her right back. Ow, she yelled, pinching him again. All right, Jack's grandfather said, inserting himself between the two of them, stopping Jack's return pinch in a very unsatisfying way. I think we've all established that no one's asleep. Why don't we introduce ourselves? I'm Jack, and this is my grandson here, also named Jack. He's Jack the 13th. The lucky one, I call him. The old man laughed, and no one else did. And you are? The girl paused, then said, May. Well, Princess, you're obviously in distress, Jack's grandfather said, reaching a hand out to help the girl to her feet. Did you say your grandmother is missing? Maybe we can help. Jack glared at her, not really over the whole pinching fiasco. Who said we want to help, he muttered. Is that what you call kissing me, the princess asked, throwing him a dirty look. Helping? Jack blushed, angry and embarrassed at the same time. The boy was trying to wake you up, the old man said before Jack could say something rude in response. He wasn't sure it'd work, sure, because he's no prince, obviously, but apparently they're relaxing the standards. He's not a prince, huh? Said the princess, one eyebrow raised as the old man helped her to her feet. Then her eyes shifted to the fairy and Jack's hair. Oh, come on, she said with a weak smile. Princes? You can't be serious. No princes around here, obviously, Jack's grandfather said. The nearest one's a good day or two away. But why waste the time when my boy is ready to help? He's not much, but he'll get the job done, princess. Her eyes narrowed. Okay, let's back up. When you say that word, princess? The old man asked. Yeah, that one, she said. You're not just doing that whole old person thing where you call girls cutesy names because you think it's charming or whatever, are you? Certainly not, Jack's grandfather huffed. I don't think I'm charming. I know. Missing the point, the princess said, her voice edging on panic. Why are you calling me princess? Jack pointed at her shirt. It's not like you're hiding it too well. She followed his gaze down to her chest, then gave him a disbelieving look. It's a t-shirt, she said. So you're not a princess, Jack asked. No, May yelled. I'm not a princess. Whatever you say, princess, Jack said, his eyes narrowing as he glared at her. Your Highness, Jack's grandfather said, inserting himself between them again, why don't you and Jack go over to our cottage so you can explain how you ended up here? I'll go grab something for us to eat from the inn. When the princess started to object, Jack's grandfather interrupted her. Don't you think we'll be able to better help once we know the full story? The princess looked like she wanted to disagree, but couldn't think of a good enough reason to do so. Fine, she said, let's go. But I'm keeping my eye on you both. Especially you, she said, pointing at Jack. You come at me with those lips again, there's going to be pain. Can't be worse than the last time, Jack said to her as his grandfather wandered off toward the village's inn. Jack nodded in the direction of their house, and he and the princess walked down the path toward it, an awkward silence filling the air as they went. Not 10 seconds after Jack closed the cottage door behind them, the blue circle of fire reopened in midair, and a giant of a man dressed entirely in green dropped out of the center, landing silently in a crouch. The man carefully touched the spot where May had landed just minutes earlier, then glanced in the direction of Jack's cottage. The man in green smiled, stood up, and slipped silently into the forest to wait for his prey to emerge. Goodness. Who knows what's going to happen next? Certainly not me, because I don't remember writing any of this, because it was like 10 years ago. I hope you enjoyed Chapter 2. I would love to give you more commentary on what's happening. Again, like I said in Chapter 1, I love the fact that May can be our kind of viewpoint on this whole fairy tale world. So when she sees an actual fairy, which is probably pretty normal to people in a fantasy book, but looks like a tiny human with wings, it's going to be pretty odd to someone like us. I always thought that was going to be more fun as I went, and she gets used to it pretty quick, which is also fun because she's May, and a bit sarcastic. I hope you like Chapter 2. I will be reading from Chapter 3 very soon, so check back in a few days. And meanwhile, check out my other videos too, where I'm reading from Story Thieves and my new series, Revenge of Magic. Thank you so much.